So today we're going to do the handover video on the Bessacar. We're going to start on the outside and then we're going to move on to the inside. So firstly, starting on the passenger side, opening up your fuel cap, you can see that you've got your diesel filler cap, which is up at the top. Opening up the passenger door, just open for you now. You can see you've got your bonnet release catch, which is just here to release the bonnet. And whilst we are here, you'll notice you've got Remis cab blinds fitted to this vehicle. Simply pinch the little clip here, this release the blind, and then bleed from the bottom and let them connect up like so. These each have a magnetic strip on, which will allow them to connect into place, blacking out the cab. You have these on all your windows at the front, including your big windshield at the front. To pull back, all you need to do is again pinch and pull. I typically find it's a lot easier if you lead from the bottom, and as you can see, let that clip into place, as it can get caught. Now moving around the vehicle to the front, you can see the bonnet has been released, as I showed you. I'll pop this up now and just show you how to jump start the vehicle. Now with regards to jump starting, this is the main thing that you need to know. Underneath the bonnet, your negative terminal just pops onto here, and your positive terminal is just here onto this clip here. There is, you'll notice, a little flap that just covers this. This has got a plus sign on to indicate that that's the positive terminal, and as I mentioned, negative is onto here. Whilst the bonnet's popped, just to show a couple more things to you, you've got your engine oil down here along with your dipstick just below that. You've then got your brake disc fluid, which is just there. Your engine coolant is next. Next to that is your power steering fluid, and then finally, just in there, is your washer fluid. Continuing on to the side of the vehicle, you can see on this model you've got your fresh water tank fill-up point on the driver's side. To fill that up, all you need to do is put your key in there, turn that and remove the cap, and then using a food grade hose pipe, you can then put the hose pipe straight into here to fill up the tank. I recommend using a food grade hose pipe, not a normal hose pipe, just to ensure no bacteria is built up within the pipe when putting water in the van. When you're on site, you can of course drain all this down via a grid when you're leaving, but I'll show you how that operates, or how to do that shortly. When this is overflowing, obviously you know that you've filled up the system, so you can put that back on and then you're good to go. Next, you'll notice that you've got this little attachment here. Just removing the cap, you can see it just gains you access to it. This allows you to connect up to something called a smart site, which will in essence connect up to here and will fill up the water tank with fresh water as you use the fresh water. So that way, if you do run out of water, that way you'll never run out of water. If you're having things like a shower, it'll allow you to connect directly up to your water point at the site. So if you're having a shower, you'll never run out of the water, which is quite handy, and that's done through that little attachment there. Next, you've got your fridge vents, which are on here. One thing to know is if it is a really sunny day and you've got the sun shining down on this side of the vehicle, as you can imagine, it's not going to help the fridge, because this is where it pulls all the air from to cool the fridge. So with that in mind, just keep this under shade. Next, you can see you've got your hookup point, which just connects into here. This is what gives you 230 volt mains electric to the vehicle. And next to this, you've also got your gas tank, or your gas locker rather, where you can fit your gas bottle. Now with your gas bottle, you need to make sure these are turned off when travelling due to safety, but when you're on site, you can turn them on to feed the gas through. At the back, opening this up, you can see you've got a tall cupboard / locker area, along with a cassette toilet, which is just below. Cassette toilet is really easy to use. You need to make sure, however, before removing the system, that the blade on the toilet is closed. When you've made sure of that, you can lift this up and pull out the cassette like so. Pulling this out, you can see it's dead simple to empty. All you need to do, pull the little funnel out, remove the cap, and then using the little orange button on the back, which will release an internal vacuum, will allow you to empty the entire system. You can then put a bit of water in there just to swill it out, and if you have got any blue fluid, just simply put that in the top of the cap to clean out and cleanse the entire system. Now you will notice that you have got a little orange lever here which actually turns. This should always remain in this position. You should never need to remove that. That is just what makes contact with the blade on the toilet. Now putting the cassette back in, just line that up like so and slide it in until it clips in here so it's nice and secure. You'll notice you've got your awning pole as well stored in here, and for your awning I'll show you how that is done in a different video. Moving to the back, you've got your fuel bike rack on this model along with your camera which is at the back there. Returning to the passenger side, as we say, you've got your awning which is on that side, which you can just feed into there. As I say, I'll send you a video separately to show you how the awning works, but please do bear in mind, if it is a windy day, don't use the awning because it's like a massive sail, as you can imagine, which will simply just blow off the van, so just bear that in mind. Moving to the front, the final vent on this side is a truma vent. This does get very hot, so do bear that in mind, don't hang anything on there. But that is in essence your chimney for the vehicle. Now coming back onto the driver's side, your final things on the outside are your waste and fresh water drain down points. Your drain down points of the vehicle are the most important thing. You need to always ensure that your vehicle is correctly drained down to ensure that there's no water that is frozen in the system. You've got one for your fresh tank, which is here as labelled, and then one for your waste tank, which is here. Now on site, as I mentioned briefly before, when you are moving off site, you'll have a huge grid that you need to drive over. When you're over that grid, simply turn each valve and that will empty the entire system. Now what I always say to customers is, when you're at that point, drain down the majority of the water in the tank, and then you can leave these systems open, because as you're travelling home, the water in the tank is going to vibrate out the vehicle. Now you've three main drain down points in the van. As I say, you've got two here, which is your fresh and your waste, and your final one is your boiler drain down point. Your boiler drain down point is on the inside of the van, and again it's very important, even more so than these two systems, but we'll show you that when we're in the inside of the van. Now moving on to the inside of the vehicle, you can see as you walk through the habitation door, you're greeted with your control panel up at the top. To turn on your lights, click on the power. This is the main master switch, and as you can see it displays your leisure battery voltage, which I'll show you in a minute. And then to turn your lights on, click cabin lights. You can see your lights on the inside will then light up, and then you're away. Next to the cabin light button, you've got the view levels. Click the view levels, and on one side it will show you the vehicle battery level, and on the other your leisure battery level. Up at the top you've then got your fresh water level, and then next to that you've got your wastewater level as well. You can see your water at the moment is reading 0% because with no water in, and your leisure battery is more or less full, as well as your vehicle battery. Coming over to the other side, you've then got your water pump. Your water pump should only be used when you've got water in the vehicle. Now when you're on site and you're filled up with water, click your water pump on and go to your taps, including your shower, and turn them on and turn them to hot. What that'll do is it'll pull fresh water from the fresh water tank into the boiler and then out of the tap. It's going to spurt and splutter, and then when it's running steadily, you've primed your system for your hot water. Once you've done that, flick it over to cold, do the exact same. When it's spurting and spluttering, or after it's done that rather, and it's running steadily, you've primed your system. Once you have done that, you can leave your pump on. Don't worry about burning it out because you've primed the system. On each of your taps you've got a micro switch which will activate and deactivate the pump whenever you need it to. Just do bear in mind that your water pump should only remain on if you've got that water in the system. Obviously if you run out of water you need to turn that off. But as I say, you shouldn't need to if you've got water in the system. You've got your micro switches on each tap, and that includes the shower. Now, coming back over to the panel, you've finally got frost protection. You click that, that will heat the heated elements in the wastewater tanks, freshwater tank, which will stop it from freezing. What I personally recommend is, because them two systems, or two tanks rather, outside, I'd often always put a bucket underneath and leave them open, so the water in the tank never sits in the tank and it goes straight outside the vehicle into a bucket, therefore never running the risk of freezing. The final sign on this is your awning light, or switch on this is your awning light. Click that, and that's just a little door light on the outside of the van. You can see next to this you've then got a switch which turns on and off the switches or the lights underneath the bed, and then finally you have a panel which says Truma on it. This is the Truma heating system, and this is how you heat the vehicle itself as well as water temperature. So to turn this on, all you need to do is click that, and you can see anything under the line is what you want to select. So I'll just come closer now. So firstly, 1 second. If I just come to the top, there we are. You can see you've got the option of the temperature in the vehicle. If you click that, you can take the temperature all the way up to 30 degrees, should you want to. I'll just come a little bit closer so it's easier to see. As you can see, click that, and then you can turn it to 30 degrees, should you want to. Back, you've then got your water temperature. You can run it off Eco, Hot, or Boost. Eco is approximately 40 degrees, and you're going to be running that when you're having a shower. Hot is approximately 70 degrees, you're going to be running that when you're washing up. And then Boost will concentrate on heating the water rather than the vehicle's heating, and will in essence try and heat up the water to the best of its ability. Now you will notice you've just got an error code that's popped up here. I'll talk to you in a second why you are getting the error code, but I'll tell you that in a minute. Next, you've then got the option of fuel, which is indicated by this little gas canister. You can either run it off gas, mix 1, which is a mixture of gas and 1 kilowatt electric, mix 2, which is a mixture of gas and 2 kilowatt electric, EL1, which is purely 1 kilowatt electric, and EL2, which is purely 2 kilowatt electric. So if you're on site, 9 times out of 10 you run it off your EL2. Certain sites may limit you to EL1 depending on the power output. Mixture is a mixture of gas and 2 kilowatt electric. You're going to be doing that if it is a really cool day and it's struggling to heat up on the electric. Or gas, when you're wild camping, you'll run it off your gas. Obviously, because you've not got access to 230 volt. Finally, you've then got your fan speed. You can either have it on high, eco, or boost. Eco is just a gentle fan. High is a lot more intense than that. And then finally, your boost is an intensified version and will again concentrate on heating the actual vehicle rather than water. So it works vice versa in essence. Coming back. There we are. Coming back, you've then got a timer. So you can set the time of when you want the heating to kick in. You've then got the clock, you can change the time. And then finally you have a little spanner, which in here gives you all your settings. Now you will notice that you've got a reset button in here. Now the only time you'll need to reset this panel is if you ever get an error code. Now as I mentioned, you did notice that there was a little error code that popped up, and if I come back to the main home screen, it's gone now, but you did get a little warning triangle here. The reason for that warning triangle is currently I'm not plugged into any 230 volt mains electric and I've not got any gas in the vehicle. So because I've turned on your heating, it's trying to fuel the vehicle with something that it's not got. You've therefore got the error code. So, and you often get this if you've been on a site where you've removed the hookup cable or the fuel without turning off the panel, and it goes into an error mode just to obviously protect itself. With that in mind, you need to then go to your settings panel, click that, and scrolling through to the reset, click reset, click preset again. That'll initialize, the panel will then flicker, and then it will reset itself. Once you've done that, you need to wait approximately, I'd say, 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes to ensure that it does a full reset on itself, and then you're good to use it again. Now moving away from the controls and into the kitchen area, in this model you've got a full oven and grill. Obviously you need to make sure that you've got gas feeding through, and then you can see you've got an electric plate there, so if you're on site, which is quite nice. We've spoken about obviously your water pump and priming your system. Above that you have a little bit of storage either side of the microwave, and it's worth knowing that your microwave will only work if you've got 230 volt electric coming into the vehicle, so it'll only work when you're plugged in on site. Below the oven and grill in the kitchen area, you can see you've got a bit of storage which is in there, which is again handy, and some more storage for cutlery and pots and pans. Directly opposite the kitchen area you've got your fridge, which is just here. In your fridge you've got your freezer up at the top, and then your fridge below. Now, how you operate the fridge is dead simple. You can see when you open the fridge you've got a little panel here. This is a Dometic system, and it's a three-way system. That means that there's 3 ways of fueling the fridge. With that in mind, click this button to turn it on. It'll then turn on the system. The first button is a little plug, and that stands for 230 volt electric. You've then got a little flame button, which is gas, and you've then got a little 12 volt button, which is for your leisure battery. Your A button I'll get to in a minute. So when you're on site and you're hooked up, you're going to be running it off your 230 volt electric. When you're wild camping, you run it off your gas, which is this little flame, and then when you are travelling, you'll run it off your 12 volt leisure battery. Now a lot of people think that they can run when they're wild camping the fridge off the 12 volt leisure battery. However, that is not the case. It'll simply completely deplete the levels on the battery and just burn it out. So it'll only allow you to run the system off the 12 volt battery when travelling, because this vehicle has a built-in alternator which will send power directly to the leisure battery, which will then feed the fridge, so bear that in mind. Now to stop you getting confused with all this, the A button stands for automatic. Click that and that will select whatever fuel you've got to avoid you from selecting a fuel similar to the heater that you've not got. Next to that you've got the temperature button, and then finally you've got a reset button there should you need to reset it. Now one thing to know with the fridge is it works very well at maintaining the temperature, but not the best at getting stuff down to the temperature, especially if it is in the warmer seasons. So with that in mind, put cold things in the fridge and frozen things in the freezer, and it'll just maintain that. You've then got a bit of storage underneath the fridge, as you can see here, and underneath here you'll notice you've got some taps which are there. Them taps are isolation taps. You don't need to move them or anything, leave them as they are. Need to ensure that they're always open at all times. The only time they need to be turned is if a technician is working on the vehicle. Above you've also another storage area, and in here you've got your controls for the bed. Your bed is dead simple and it's really easy how it works. You need to obviously make sure that you're plugged in or I've got the control panel on, and then what you need to do is turn the key. It's quite difficult to see because of the lighting, but you need to turn the key, and then using your buttons, you click your button, hold it, and that will lower the bed. Now with this drop down bed, which you can see is just up here, you have two options. You can either have it halfway, where you get a ladder up to it, and then this area you can convert into a bed, or if you want you can drop this bed all the way down, as you can see on the two rails here, and then use it as a lower double bed. If you are using it in that position, you do need to remove these backrests as well as these, and once you've done that, this bed will lower all the way down, which I'll do for you now. So as you can see, I've just removed the cushions now. All you need to do with the key turned is to then press the button. This will then drop the entire bed. this is in the halfway position, as you can see, and all you need is to get some ladders up here to use it, and then this area can turn into the bed. But then if you keep on holding that, that will drop the entire bed. So moving on from the bed, bed's now in the up position, and moving to the back, you can see that you've got a bit of storage in here. In here you've got a little panel at the back there which is flashing. That is for your solar charger. That's your solar regulator, which will regulate the power that the solar panel is putting into the battery. You don't need to do anything with that, you can leave that as it is. You have a bit of hanging space up here, as you can see. And then finally, you've got your status aerial. How this works, it's dead simple. Unscrew the white collar here, like so. You can then push up and then tighten the pole into place. And then you can turn that around if you wanted to change the obviously the location of the aerial. And then if you use this, you can then wind down, or and wind it rather. You can tilt the head of the aerial depending on how much signal you need. Always make sure that when travelling that this is kept down. So unscrew this and pull this down into position, because you don't want to be travelling off with that in the raised position. And that goes for the same on all of your windows in the vehicle and all your skylights. So just make sure they're all down and closed. Now coming back and underneath, you've then got your sergeant unit here. This is where all your fuses and also trip switches are. Trip switches are up at the top there. If the vehicle ever trips, you need to come to here, and your fuses are just below in there. This is the, you don't need to click any of this. Everything that you need to know is up on that panel there. But this allows you to, this is more for the technicians really. And you can turn on the charger units and things like that. But as I say, everything that you need to know is on the panel. That's really just for the technicians. The only thing you really need to know about on there is the trip switches as well as your fuses. So finally moving to the back, we've discussed obviously about your taps and your shower. The final thing is your toilet. As I mentioned on the outside, you need to make sure that the blade on the toilet is always closed. The reason for that is, as I've explained, if you remove it and try to force it with the blade open, you'll simply damage the cassette and break it. So ensure that the blade is always closed. When in use, however, you need to make sure that the blade is open, and the blade is this silver piece here. Push that away from you, that will open the blade. That will then allow all the waste to drop into the cassette, and once you've done that, click the blue button which activates your flush, and that will empty the cassette and put it, and flush the system and put it all into the cassette. Once you've done that, close the blade. Close the blade for two reasons. One of the reasons being it gets you into the habit of having that closed, so when you remove the cassette to empty it, you don't run the risk of it damaging. And two, it stops any odours from escaping. Now coming back up to this little system here, as I say, this is for your freshwater tank. This is what, it pulls it from the freshwater tank rather, and this is your flush. This blue button activates that, which you need to obviously make sure that your pump is on for that to work. And also, before moving on, you do get a red little light on here, which will indicate, for example, when the cassette is full. So once you've got that, just need to empty the cassette. Before moving on, you've got a bit more storage in here, which connects into the inside of the locker. You have a bit of storage up there, and also some beneath the sink. You've then also got a light in here, which turns on and off the light in the bathroom. Now finally, before we finish today's handover video, you can see I've just dismantled your part of your lounge here, because underneath here is where the boiler is located. Underneath, by taking off the cushions, will gain you access to the boiler. This looks very complicated, however, don't worry, there's nothing, you don't really need to know much in here. The only thing that you need to know is that this little system here, this allows the boiler to be closed or opened, and this is the drain down point that I mentioned on the outside. This is the most important drain down point. You need to always make sure that this is drained down when not in use, because you will get frozen water in the system, which will ultimately lead to a new boiler replacement, which is very costly, as you can imagine. So please make sure that this is drained down. In the up position, it is drained down. In the down position, it is closed. Always make sure it's up to drain down the entire system. As you can see, the lounge is back together now, and as I mentioned before briefly, this area can turn into a bed just by sliding out this, like so. You've then got another section here which slides out. As you can see, this then meets in the middle, and then using your cushions you can create a double bed down here. It is worth noting that it's probably worth having a mattress topper, just to take out the contours in the seats, but then that way you can sleep another 2 guests. So that concludes the handover video on the Bessacar. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.